We're going to continue talking about Jesus, our substitute, next.
Greg Fritz Ministries wants to give you a free booklet entitled Jesus, Our Substitute that accompanies this television series as our gift to you. To receive your free printed copy of our new booklet, call us at 918-878-8000. Are you tired of hearing bad news? Tune in to the good news of the gospel.
I love Greg.
I love the way he teaches faith and the way he teaches healing. It's phenomenal.
Greg Fritz has been changing lives through the good news of the gospel for over 35 years.
Because he delivers the Word of God with such warmth and balance and great clarity.
This good news will inspire, inform, and change you so you can live daily in all the promises of God. Welcome to Good News with Greg Fritz.
Hello, I'm Greg Fritz. Welcome to the Good News program. We're doing a series, Jesus, Our Substitute. And this section of teaching I'm calling the greatest story ever told. What Jesus did for us is the greatest story ever told. Everything associated with Jesus is the greatest. He's one subject and one being that cannot be overhyped. He is more amazing than we can even describe or explain, but looking at what he did and just looking at the life of Jesus is life-changing. You know, I'm very fortunate that when I was a teenager, I got Spirit-filled and I began to do children's church. I dove into the truths of our redemption at that point. I was teaching children some of the things that I'm teaching you right now, many years ago. And these redemptive truths will allow you to have a faith that just can't be shaken in some. There are certain lines that just you cannot cross once these things become real to you. I listened to the testimony of a well-known minister who went through a very, very tragic situation in his life. He ended up in court, and he sat out on the courthouse steps, according to his own words, and he was questioning if God even existed. He was questioning if there was a God and if God had really called him. And I've never had that problem. And I believe it's because I cut my teeth on these redemptive truths. It's so powerful when you see what Jesus did and you see how God was so committed to our redemption. As you go through that and it sinks deep into your soul, there's certain things that you just don't doubt anymore. And so I just encourage you to get all this teaching. We've got it all in the audio series, Jesus, Our Substitute. This is 6 messages. It's pure redemptive teaching. And these scriptures, as you listen to them, will strengthen your faith and your foundation like nothing else. Talk about building your house on a rock. Man, there is nothing more strengthening or more stabilizing than building your life on Jesus and what He did for you. So I encourage you to get this series, and it's available in CD, USB, and in download MP3 versions. You can download it right now to your computer, and at the very least, get my booklet, Jesus, who He is, what He did, and how He changed the world. And this is a synopsis of our teaching on Jesus, and it will just strengthen your faith like nothing else. You know, the closer you get to the center of anything, the more powerful it is. And so Jesus is really at the center of what God's done for us. You know, it's like it just doesn't get any better than Jesus, who He is and what He did. And also be sure and get the study notes. They're free. You can download them right now onto your computer, your device, or call our helpline, and our prayer counselors are standing by to help you, to give you the things that you need and help you with offerings if you'd like to give. We would love to hear from you today. We're going through Matthew's account of what Jesus did for us, and we covered the trial and His interaction with Pilate. Then Pilate sent Him off to be scourged, and we talked about that violent, horrific experience that produced healing for the world. By His stripes we were healed, and now He was sent to the soldiers, or given over to the Roman soldiers, and they began to abuse Him. They're going to eventually lead Him off and crucify Him. So we're at Matthew chapter 27, Matthew 27 and verse 27. The soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the praetorium. This is after he had been beaten, after he had been whipped. They took him into the praetorium and they gathered the whole garrison around him. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him. And when they had twisted a crown of thorns, they put it on his head and a reed in his right hand. And they bowed the knee before him and mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews." And then they spat on him and took the reed and struck him on the head. And when they had mocked him, they took the robe off him and put his own clothes on him, back on him. This is just, this is how the devil treats those that he gets dominion over. He is not interested in peace or treaties. He just wants to kill, steal, destroy. There was no reason for this humiliation. Jesus was the most pure, holy, wonderful, righteous person who'd ever lived on this earth. And because they had this power over him, because this was the plan of God to allow him to be crucified, they abused it to the max. As much as they could, they took advantage of his seemingly weakness. We all know that Jesus could have called upon the Father and had 12 legions of angels come and rescue him at any moment. The fact that he didn't do that is testimony to the commitment he has to you. He was not about to back out. He was not about to give up on you and me. He did this for the joy that was set before him, and that's you and me, his family. These minor details were not overlooked by the prophets. Isaiah 50 and verse 6, it says, "I gave my back to those who struck me, and my cheeks to those who plucked out my beard. I did not hide my face from shame and spitting." Those little details were left in the Old Testament as clues so that we could go back and look and say, you know what? None of this was accidental. None of this happened by chance. Jesus was walking out the divine plan of God. As terrible as it looked, he was doing God's will and fulfilling and purchasing our redemption. In John 19, I want to give you some of John's account of this. We're sticking primarily with Matthew, but John talks about it in greater detail, and I'll just read some of this. John 19 in verse 1, Then Pilate took Jesus and scourged him, and the soldiers twisted a crown of thorns and put it on his head, and they put on him a purple robe, and they said, "Hail, King of the Jews," and they struck him with their hands. Pilate then went out again and said, "Behold, I am bringing him out to you, that you may know that I find no fault in him." So this was a political situation. There were all kinds of politics going on in this government at this time. Public opinion was being swayed. The devil was doing all he could do to turn people against Jesus. And Pilate was kind of caught in the middle, although he's not innocent in the whole thing, but he was caught in the middle. And verse 5, "Then Jesus came out wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe, and Pilate said to them, 'Behold the man.' Therefore, when the chief priests and officers saw him, they cried out, saying, 'Crucify him, crucify him.' Pilate said, 'You take him and crucify him, for I find no fault in him.'" So they had to have Pilate's approval. Pilate could have stopped this, but he didn't. And so he's trying to authorize it without taking the blame for it, which, sounds like politics, doesn't it? And then in verse 7, the Jews, then they hit him, and he couldn't resist this. He couldn't overcome this. They said, "We have a law. According to our law, he ought to die because he made himself the Son of God." And therefore, when Pilate heard that, he was more afraid. And he went again to the praetorium and said to Jesus, "Where are you from?" And Jesus gave him no answer. And Jesus could have negotiated his release at that moment, but he refused to do so. And then Pilate said, "Are you not speaking to me? Do you not know that I have the power to crucify you and the power to release you?" And Jesus said, "You could have no power at all against me unless it had been given to you from above. Therefore, the one who delivered me to you has the greater sin." And then here's where they got Pilate And he couldn't resist this. He just couldn't overcome this because it was his career, his politics. Then from then on, Pilate sought to release him, but the Jews cried out, saying, "If you let this man go, you are not Caesar's friend. Whoever makes himself a king speaks against Caesar." So they I don't know who came up with this, obviously the devil. They're just saying, look, he said he was a king. Isn't Caesar king? Are you going to stand here and let this happen? And that was it. Pilate, therefore, when he heard this saying, he brought Jesus out, sat down in the judgment seat in a place that's in the pavement called Gabbatha. Now it was preparation day of the Passover. It was right before Passover. This is exactly when the lamb was supposed to be killed. All of the symbolism that the Jewish nation had been living out for all these years was being played out. And now it's not symbolic, it's real. Jesus is the actual lamb, and it's all happening right on time. It was the day of the Passover, about the 6th hour, and he said to the Jews, "Behold your king." And they said, "Away with him, crucify him." And Pilate said, "Shall I crucify your king?" And they said, "We have no king but Caesar." And they got him. I mean, they used politics against a politician, and it worked. And he delivered him to be crucified. And we'll go back to Matthew now and take the story up from there. But what a series of events. And really, as far as we're concerned, you know, it would have been a horrible experience to live through this if you'd have been a disciple, someone who loved Jesus, someone who believed in Jesus. But it was the will of God. You can't always tell what's going on by just looking at the headlines and watching the news unfold. There are so many other things happening. And I'm going to just tell you, when this life is over, when our lives are over, this generation is over, there will be some things that God did in the midst of it that you'll be amazed at, because God is not going to be silenced. He's not going to stop. He has people he can count on. Even in Elijah's day, Elijah said, "I'm the only one. There's no one left but me." And God says, no, I've got 7,000 people. I know exactly who they are and where they are, and they've not sold out. So don't you worry. The work of God goes forth in good times and bad. Even when society itself turns against God, God's still working. He's still wiser than everyone else. He can still bring His will to pass. Not in each individual, mind you. He's not going to force people to accept Him, not in each individual. But as far as the body of Christ, your life, if you're submitted to God, God's plan and purpose on the earth is going forward. And so, you know, the world's been through bad times before, but God's not going away, and the church isn't going to be destroyed. The world's not going to be destroyed. God is still working. And the best thing we can do is look at truths like this and realize, even in the worst of times, God's will is going to be done in God's people. And if you think about it, the will of God was done in Jesus' life, in the 11 of the 12 apostles' lives, and in those who followed Jesus. The will of God, even though this was it looked like it was over, God's will was accomplished. And I could say with certainty right now, as bad as it looks, and as many things that are going wrong around us, as we look at the corruption, the destruction, the decline of modern civilization due to sin and sinful people, there's still a remnant. God's still working. And if you'll walk with God, His will be accomplished in your life. His will is being accomplished in my life. And because of that, we can look forward to the future. We can count on God to supply our needs and to protect us and to provide for us and to heal us and to comfort us and give us direction, because God's not intimidated by tough situations. So the soldiers mocked him, and then in 31 they put his own clothes back on him and they led him away to be crucified. Verse 32, as they came out, they found a man of Cyrene, Simon by name. Him they compelled to bear his cross. And when they had come to the place called Golgotha, the place of the skull, they gave him sour wine mingled with gall to drink. And when he had tasted it, he would not drink. Then they crucified him. And they divided his garments, casting lots. These are Roman soldiers that are casting lots to see who gets to win his garment. Evidently, he had a very expensive undergarment that was sewn out of one piece, and so they didn't want to rip it into rags. So they gambled to see who would win it. Well, this was prophesied. This minor detail was prophesied, and I'll tell you who did. It's Psalm 22. David. They divided my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots. So this was spoken years before it ever, decades, centuries before it happened. And the Roman soldiers were not trying to fulfill prophecy. They were just doing what they did. They were out for themselves. But the fact is, it was foretold because God saw it, and He put that in Scripture so that we would know, hey, this was no accident. Everything's going according to plan. And if you serve God, you just have to hold on in tough times and realize God's on your side. God's got your plan and your future already established and decided. And if you'll follow Him, no one can stop you from doing what God's called you to do. And then sitting down, they kept watch over him. They put over his head the accusation written against him. This is Jesus, the King of the Jews. Amazing. Goodness, it's just, I'm going to read on through this and then make some more comments. But this is verse 39, those who passed by blasphemed him, wagging their heads, saying, you who destroyed the temple and built it in 3 days, save yourself if you are the Son of God. Come down from the cross. And those words also were quoted by Jesus and by the prophets. Physician, save yourself. He said, they're going to say that to me. And they did, and they were not trying to fulfill prophecy here. These people had no knowledge of prophecy, and if they did, they didn't care. But they fulfilled prophecy in condemning him. Likewise, the chief priest, mocking with the scribes and elders, said he saved others. Himself he cannot save. If he's the King of Israel, let him come down now from the cross, and we will believe him. He trusted in God. Let him deliver him now, if he will have him. For he said, I am the Son of God. Even the robbers who were crucified with him reviled him with the same thing. And the truth is, he could have come down. He could have come down from the cross just like that and stopped their blasphemy and stopped their accusations. He could have put them in their place, but he refused to do that. He was not going to turn back. Your redemption was too precious and too important. Jesus was going to carry on and go through with this entire process. And believe me, there were no shortcuts taken here. Nothing was reduced so that he could bear it. The full power of condemnation and wrath and judgment was poured out upon Jesus. And this is only the beginning. In fact, the parts that we can't see are probably worse, maybe 1,000 times worse than what we can see, because he literally took your place in judgment. It's beyond our comprehension, but it happened. That's why I'm saying, when you begin to look at the truths of redemption and they become real to you, there are certain things that happen in your life, and one of them is you never doubt that there's a God again. You never doubt it, because only God could do something like this. A human being would have given up long ago. A natural person would have just skipped the whole process. Only God could have done what Jesus did. Only God can love this way, and so it's a great foundation on which to be built. And I know it's like a horror story, but here's the amazing thing: the Bible says He was the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. And Paul said that he's declaring the mystery of the gospel, and it was kept secret since before the world was made. That means this story I'm telling you, God kept it secret in His heart. He knew the horror. He knew the agony. He knew the gore and all the details. And yet that's the story He kept secret. Like a hidden treasure, like something that was too valuable to be revealed. Because had He let the secret out, then the devil wouldn't have cooperated and this wouldn't have happened. And so He kept it secret. But it's amazing that it was this awful, this horrible, and it was this that God was willing to do for us, and planned, prepared, thought ahead, and made everything, put everything in place so He could do this. Man, we prepare just for the opposite. We prepare for retirement. We prepare for success. We prepare to do something great or do something that matters or something that people would appreciate. Jesus prepared to die, and throughout eternity past, he was the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. Can you imagine that being your goal, your future? Jesus did that all for us. It's just... it's amazing. Verse 45, now in the 6th hour until the 9th hour, there was darkness all over the land. And about the 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. That is to say, my God, why have you forsaken me? And we're going to talk about this moment. And this is when things happen that you can't see and that you don't realize are happening. But this is the moment where the judgment of the world came upon Jesus. He cried out to God. He'd never been in a situation like this before, but he's saying, God, why have you forsaken me? Well, in 2 Corinthians 5:21, He made Him who knew no sin to be sin for us, that we might be made the righteousness of God. At some point, He had to be made sin. At some point, He had to take the place of a sinner. As the substitute, that's one who takes the place of another. This is it. I believe this is the moment when God took the sin of the world and laid it on Jesus. At His weakest time, at His weakest moment, He became sinful. And the wrath of God then was poured out upon His own Son. Your sentence, my sentence, was executed on the Son. As we said, Jesus is not dying as a martyr. This is not a martyr's death. This is the death of a criminal. This is the death of a sinner. This is the execution of a sentence for a heinous crime. All of the sins of the world and the results of those sins, the guilt of those sins was placed upon Jesus, and then God, the judge, had to judge sin upon Him. And Jesus even said before He went to the cross, He said, now is the judgment of this world come. Well, it's come right here, right now. And He took that for us. I'm telling you, there is no hero. As I study these things, and this is not the first time that I've shared these truths or looked at them and been blown away by them. But the more I do, the more I see how the world is just misguided. They make heroes out of people that are not worthy. They exalt people that really don't deserve it. And the truth of the matter is, if you ever talk to someone who's really gotten a lot of fame for acting or for whatever, most of those people are embarrassed in private because they know their faults, they know their failures, and they feel guilty. They're afraid people are going to see the real them. They're afraid that one of these days the veil's going to be removed and people are going to see them and then lose all respect. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes scandals come out and people see behind, and then they fall. And of course the media takes great pleasure in building people up and then destroying them. It's good news. But Jesus, no one deserves the honor, the glory, the praise, the worship, the credit that Jesus deserves. And the more you see Him, the more you find out about it. There is no hidden Jesus. There is no other side of Him. The more you understand Him and see Him, the more beautiful He becomes. The more worthy He is to be who we say He is. I say it this way: Jesus is Lord and you're not. Jesus is Lord and I'm not. And the more I know Him, the more I learn about Him, the happier I am that He's seated on that throne. No one deserves to be there except Him. No one deserves to be the King of Kings and Lord of Lords but Him. No one deserves for everyone in heaven and on earth and under the earth to confess with their mouth that Jesus Christ is Lord. No one but Jesus. There's no one like Him. No one has done what He did. He's quoting from Psalm 22 here. And that psalm is the Messianic psalm, and it goes through some of the things that He experienced on the cross, as well as some of the jeering and the blasphemy that they hurled His way as He hung there. Those very words are repeated in Psalm 22. We see in Psalm 37:25, David said, I've been young and now I'm old, and I've never seen the righteous forsaken, because they're not. The righteous are not forsaken. So when Jesus said, why have you forsaken me? I believe He had taken the sins of the world upon Himself, and He was facing the consequences for sin. Unspeakable consequences, unimaginable horror that came over Him at that moment. But He did it. And can I just fast forward to the end, because we got to close today. It worked. He came out of the grave. He forgave us of our sins. He defeated the devil. He defeated death. He got back the keys of authority, and He immediately transferred that authority to us. And it all happened because He was willing to go through this process for you and for me. Well, that's all the time we have. Please, I know you probably haven't watched everything in this series on television, but you can get all the teaching, and it builds, and it's powerful. You can have this in your library. Call our helpline and order your copy. Let them know I want it in CD or USB, or go to the website and download it. It's $30 if we mail it out to you. It's $20 if you download it. And you can listen to this teaching. And also, don't forget to get the free booklet. We'll mail that out to you, or you can download it on your screen there, the QR code. If you'll scan that, you can download it to your device and have it right now. And we'd love for you to do that. Thank you for being there. Listen, if you believe in this program, if you believe in what we're doing, consider being a part of it. I know not everyone's going to be a partner. I realize that. And the reason we have partners is so that we can produce this program and put it out there free for everyone. But I have to count on God to help me motivate enough of you to be partners so that we can provide this for the rest of them. You partners are part owners. And this isn't true with any other TV program. They're all sponsored by corporations and companies, and sometimes they get canceled, and their advertisements get pulled because they don't agree with what they said. But ministry's totally different. God is allowing you to be part owner in the Good News program. And I can't think of anything the world needs more right now than real good news from the Bible. And I commit to you that we're going to continue to stay with the Word. We're going to continue to preach the Word. And I would love to continue this program on indefinitely. And you can ensure that by giving an offering or partnering today. The ways to give are on the screen. Please take advantage of that. Call our helpline, and they'll sign you up, set you up to be a partner. They'll take your one-time gift. Your money really does make a difference here. And I promise you I won't waste it. I'll turn it into more good news preaching and send it out around the world.